Welcome to the Blackburn podcast. It's Monday the 19th of August. I'm Mike and these are the headlines for this week. Rovers start their League Cup run with a strong rotated side as they thump Stockport 6-1 away. Szmodics signs off his Rovers career with a brace as he departs for Premier League's Ipswich, and Ohashi is the hero once again to drag Rovers back into the game and earn a draw away at Carrow Road. But of course, I'm never on my own. I have my partner in crime, Mark. You've racked up some miles this week.
Had a lovely trip down to Norwich. I'll tell you what, Mike, it's hot down south. Oh, balmy. We were all there in T-shirts. I didn't know what to do with myself. But yes.
Well, we saw the photo of you with the sunglasses on, so you did look quite smart. So you did, you were prepared.
Yeah. I was prepared for it. No sun cream, but I was prepared for it. What I was trying to do, I asked the guy to take a photo. I said, make a good one, because we've had a look at the demographics of the pod and there's not that many women listening, is there? So I thought, right, I need to up my game here. So, yeah, I'd had my hair cut. I got myself ready, but we'll see if it makes a difference.
Yeah, well, if the women like a bold man, I am here, but I'm not sure the wife will like me pimping myself out like that. But we will we'll ignore that Norwich game and put it to one side just for now. We have recorded this podcast a little bit earlier than this week than normal. So if any news or anything we discuss changes between now and tomorrow, I apologise. But we are going to get into that Stockport game first. So 6-1 victory away. It was a stronger side than I expected, but there was a bit of rotation in there. Was you surprised with that starting lineup?
Yeah. It wasn't the lineup I would have had. I would have rotated a lot more. Obviously, Mark Ande was the obvious one, but then it was explained with his loan move. Don't get me wrong, I don't think there's anything wrong with it. They got 60 minutes. The game was, we always say, don't we, get the game done and then you can rest them. So I'm happy to leave that with Eustace and his team, because I from my perspective, I was thinking, well, it must be a fitness thing. They must need it. The only thing that then made me question that was how tired they were after 40 minutes at Norwich, some of those players. But I'm presuming that it's just the stage of fitness they're at anyway, because they put a shift in at Norwich, didn't they, as well? So, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we obviously came out the traps quite early against Stockport. They didn't offer anything, if we're being harsh. One player that obviously stood out to everyone was John Buckley. Now, we spoke about him on the pod last week. So he either listened and thought, sod you, I'm going to make you look like absolute idiots. But one thing we do need to remember, he was playing a lesser team, with all due respect to Stockport. But he did run the show. I mean, he was getting ratings of 10 out of 10, a couple of assists. He wore the captain's armband as well. So do you think this is a sign of things to come, or is it just a flash in the pan?
I hope it's a sign of things to come. I think you know my feelings on John Buckley. He's probably the closest that we've got to Tronstad and the closest that we've got to what Adam Wharton did for the team in terms of comfortable in possession, willing to pick it up off the back foot. I think that's probably where he needs his role to be. If he's going to get in the team, he needs to become that sitting midfielder, because he reads the game very well and he intercepts really well. But there's going to be opportunities for him with three midfielders right now. Tronstad was quite robust last year, but Travis will be banned or whatever before we know it. So he'll get a chance then. And I think he could play the Travis role quite well, because he's good at pressing, very good at pressing. Remember under Mowbray when he played that 10, he almost played there because he was then able to press really high up. So I hope it is something that is a bit of a line in the sand with John Buckley, and I hope he gets a chance. And I thought he took it on Saturday as well.
Well, the thing is games like this will give you confidence. One thing you've always said is when a team's not confident or a player's not confident, if you just give him an easier game to come into to be able to do what he does, it can build his confidence. I think you could just tell his vision, his effort, his work rate was there. And I don't want to compare him to the Adam Whartons of the world, but he was playing that kind of role at times, and you could see that. Yeah, you could see in that midfield role he was doing really well. He was paired with Tronstad, like you said. Tronstad did a bit of his dirty work for him. I'm not going to speak about the likes of Ohashi because we're going to get onto him in the Norwich game. But Szmodics, he signed off with a couple of goals. I could tell with his mannerisms and everything, it was a very foregone conclusion. This is my last game. What was he like with the fans after? You were there.
Very much similar. His body language was not quite right. That's not me saying he wasn't working hard. He did everything he needed to do, but his body language was not quite right. Something was a little off. We've not had a salute, have we? We've not had a. He came over and applauded them at the end, but it just felt like something needed to happen one way or the other. It needed a line in the sand at that point.
Well, the reason I bring it up is it seemed to me watching that he seemed annoyed that he was playing. It was like, I know I'm going, you're cup tying me. This is probably a competition. When I move to Ipswich, I'm going to get a lot of game time in. So I feel like he seemed quite moody, I think I would put at times. But it was great to see him get them couple of goals. Other mentions, Sigurdsson got his assist. He played quite well. It could be potentially that we're seeing the back of Siggy at some point. Are you seeing things off Siggy now that you think is really useful for us in future games based on this Stockport game?
I've not seen a great deal from Siggy since the beginning of last season. He's working hard. You can't question that. It's not natural to him. There was a point, I know we're talking about Stockport, there was a point against Norwich where the ball bounced, Pickering had gone in for a challenge, and to be fair to Sigurdsson, he'd run all the way back. The ball bounced up in the air over Sigurdsson's head, and Pickering managed to overtake him and slide tackle and win the ball. It's just not natural to Sigurdsson that. I think we're probably playing him slightly wrong. I think our wingers in general are quite quiet. I know Hedges has scored, but in games, they're quite quiet. We've seen that with Rankin Costello. But I hoped at the Stockport game, I thought he would look a cut above. And a bit like Buckley did, and I didn't really see that from him. I expected goals. So I was a little bit disappointed just because of how highly I rate him, really.
Well, getting in more depth with Siggy a bit later on in the show. I thought his performance here, but again, we need to have that caveat of the fact that we are playing Stockport County. They'd put out a second, maybe even third team in some of their players. You did the behind enemy lines with them, and I think they were very much discussing the fact of what the score was going to be with Rovers, how much we're going to beat them by. Now, there were youth players on our side that came on, notably Juru. Talk to me about Juru, because it's someone that you and Dan talked about quite a lot from the under-21s. He's now getting a couple of opportunities here. Did you see anything from him that showed that he's ready to make that step up?
Yeah, I thought he looked a little bit edgy early on, nothing out of the ordinary. And he spoke after and just said he was a little bit nervous just getting his first touches. Completely understandable. I thought it was a very clever move, making sure that he had one of either McFadden or Bath next to him. Very clever. And he talked to him the whole way through, did Danny Bath. I was impressed with Danny Bath. But when he did that little run in the second half, if you like, and he carried the ball forward and he showed his pace, that's what I've seen in the 21s time and time again. He does that for fun, and he can keep doing that the whole game, and he gets back. His physicality is really impressive. He's pacey. He needs to improve on when he gets in that final third, but he's a kid. I think he's somebody that should be in and around the team. I really do.
Yeah, I mean, they say about playing men's football, he's now getting men's football. I'm not too sure how much of an opportunity he's going to get this season. It will be good to see him. One player that did come on and did score was Jack Vale. Now, I've wanted to see more of Jack Vale, mainly last season more than this. I don't think he's necessarily shown enough for me to stay around the squad, especially when we're being linked with all these strikers. Do you think it's that goal was his last one in the Rovers shirt now?
It could be. It was quite telling that we needed a goal at weekend and he didn't come on. I think Jack Vale looks a little bit low on confidence and like he's... And he was playing out on the right-hand side against Stockport, wasn't he? He looks a little bit like, I've got to take this chance. But it's almost a nervousness around him. And that's completely understandable. He needs to either go to League One and play every week. The Markandé thing, I don't understand. Not that he's gone on loan. The fact he's gone to League Two, I don't see how that benefits. He needs to go to League One because we've talked about Scottish football. He needs to play, he needs to score, and we can assess it. However, I wouldn't be against us doing what we've done with George again and having an option back to buy him back at some point or a sell on. But I just don't think it's going to happen for him at Rovers. I don't think he's going to get the extended opportunity that he needs.
No, there's not enough there. I was hoping he would grow bigger and stronger. He's not actually the tallest of players. He's not necessarily the fastest. So, you know, from a body type point of view as a striker, I don't think he's built for the EFL. The Championship. He's not showing enough for me from an instinct point of view. The work rate's there, you know, it is, but it's not really shown enough. But that was the Stockport game. It's not really a game you can really get into when you thump a team 6-1 in the early rounds. But there was a game, obviously, that was a little bit more difficult, and that was Norwich away on the Saturday. So we've started a little thing of being able to record our quick match reactions. So here's some audio from our initial reactions to the game.
Well, there we have it. 2-2. I'll take it. It feels like a point gained. We've got a new hero in our man Ohashi. Great flying header there against an enemy in Shane Duffy. Fantastic to see him, just lose Ohashi there and get beaten to the ball, and seeing him strewn on the ground. Really happy about that one. Yeah, I'm going to say that second half we were poor. We gifted them a goal. Britain was uncharacteristic on that one. But generally, really happy. Think it's something we can build on. And at the end of the day, if we can go away to a team like Norwich and play quite poorly and still get something of it, I'm happy. Characters shown around the boys, and everyone's happy and smiles at the end. Great stuff.
Absolutely take that. I thought we were really, really tired in that second half. We're tired towards the end of the first half. We desperately need to get them subs in. We kind of got away with one, I think, there. They were the better team for the majority of the game, but we will take it. And what a superstar Yuki Ohashi is. I love him. I love him. I love him.
Well, I think you're definitely speaking for all the fans there. And the one thing's for certain, I've got to stop drinking beer while watching games, because the slurring of my words there says that I'd had a couple of Madries too many. So listening back to your match reaction, I think you spoke what every fan's saying about Ohashi. Is he our new hero?
Undoubtedly. The question when somebody comes into, particularly a striker in some ways, comes into a league like the Championship is, are they going to be able to physically cope? Are they going to get bullied? And he was against a big bully in Shane Duffy, and it didn't faze him at all. He's physically willing to do it. He wins free kicks, but not because he's getting bullied off the ball. And the fact that his movement, that Eustace talked about that movement over the first 10 yards, I think he reads the game really well, but then he's actually quite quick off the ground. He's not that quick over a longer period, but to get in front of Duffy, that diving header, I mean, in fact, he was against Duffy as well, made it even better, but what a header. It was unbelievable, to be fair, that we've not had a player like that. The last people of that similar stature that's as good at heading the ball in that sort of situation and willing to get across the man and attack it, I would say are probably Bradley Dack and Rhodes. They're the two that come to mind.
Yeah, I mean, he's someone that I'm looking at, and I had zero expectations of. I don't judge our signings anymore since the Bradley Dack era. I remember when we signed Dack, and I was like, "Who's this geezer?" You know, I mean, he's a bit of a character. He's with someone that's on Love Island. You know, that's all I basically knew. And he became a club legend. So I come into these signings now with a complete fresh set of eyes on it. But he's come in, and his movement and his energy is really good. Now, looking at the game itself, we started okay. Wasn't fantastic, wasn't bad, but then Norwich came back into it and we rode our luck. But when you're riding your luck like that and you're still, dealing with, with the onslaught, I was quite chuffed. And the one thing I noticed is Eustace has got us playing with an identity that's been born out of JDT's time. We've still got that passing around, that control of the game. But there's that element of solidity now. There's an element of aggressiveness that we've got. Yes, we need depth, and there's some upgrades around the squad that we need. We'll get into that later. But I can see happiness. There's smiles on the faces, and the fact that we're willing to soak it up and counter attack like we did. It shows that determination. We spoke about this team having determination last year. They had it, but it seemed like they had it, but they were still a little bit edgy at times. But we have controlled aggression. We have a lot of character. When Eustace signed, I remember we had a chat with it, and we thought it was a weird signing, didn't we, to bring in Eustace, because we thought he was going to break down everything we did. We'd heard from Blues fans that he was going to play this boring football. But credit where credit's due. We've got that plan A. And that's our identity that we had under JDT that we were building. But we've also got that plan B where we can sit back, we can do the no nonsense and get rid. It's proven in these 3 games. If plan A isn't working, we do have a plan B of digging in. And I have been really impressed. Yes, Pear's made his little error of passing it, direct to the striker. But other than that, did you feel like our identity is still being able to pass it around and keep control of the ball?
Yeah, I said last season I wasn't going to judge Eustace until about 10 games into this season. It's hard not to do, and I'll be honest, my fear going into this season was exactly what you've talked about. We've seen him just make us ugly last season, but it was necessity, and I was hoping that's all it was. And so far, it looks like it is, really. We've used our strengths from JDT, but we've added stuff that we were severely lacking. What was interesting was against Derby, we used that switch ball. We almost played quite tight areas to, say, the right-hand side, and then we'd look to switch to Pickering, who stays so wide, and Hedges does the same, and then the same for Britton and Rankin Costello. And Norwich had obviously done their homework on that, and that ball was not on at all. So it was quite interesting then how we adapted to that. And Sondre Tronstad, you probably can't see this quite as well on the television, but he was immense. His reading of the game, if he got injured, then we have a big problem, possibly more than anybody else in the team when I watched him. Because what he does is he allows Travis, I've talked about Travis before, I think Travis, where he's playing now is where Travis is good. When he's harassing the back four, he's allowed to press, he's allowed to be, and I don't mean this disrespectfully, but a little bit of a headless chicken. He can just concentrate on what he thinks he needs to do at that point, rather than tactically thinking too much. When he has to sit in a 6 role fully, I don't think he's able to, I think he gets a bit frustrated, and I don't think he's able to read the game as well as somebody like Tronstad. Tronstad just then reads what's going on around him, makes himself available for the ball, but actually just makes sure he fills in, whether Pickering's gone, whether he needs to drop into the back 3, whatever it is, and he reads the game so well. There was a point in the second half where he spotted the danger, and I think it was their left back had come forward, and he came between the gap between Britton and Carter, and Tronstad, it looks like it was easy for him, like there wasn't a threat. There was a big threat, but Tronstad had read it that well, a bit like a keeper when they get in position, and it looks like it was a comfortable save, but it's because they positioned themselves so well. He read the game, just followed him, won the ball off him, and dinked it upfield, and it looked nonchalant. It looked like he's not done that much, but he's a big player for us. And Harry Pickering gets some critics, but he was fantastic, I thought. And again, similarly, the way Pickering understands when to shuffle in and become a back 3, when he understands, that's underrated. And he did that under JDT, didn't he? He came and made into the midfield. He tactically is quite clever, is Harry Pickering. And again, it probably gets missed a bit, that.
Well, we said he's one of our most solid players. He gives that 6, 7 out of 10 minimum each game. And I came out of this game and I was upset with the performance, but I wasn't sure why the performance wasn't great. And I actually just think Norwich played quite well. You know, they attacked us when they needed to. They really pressed. But we had the ball in that final third. We was passing it around like we normally do. We looked for that second level. We did get it to that second level, but we had our chances. They had theirs, but it just seemed like they were that little bit bigger, stronger and faster. And they seemed to control the game that little bit more at the time. Now, it came out later about the stats saying that we won more ground duels, more aerial duels. Well, sometimes you have got to do that groundwork, haven't you? You've got to do the dirty work, stop the play. And that's what we were doing. So whilst it didn't seem like we were controlling the game at any point, I did feel like we were. And like you said, Tronstad was one of those. Pickering was one of those. Now, Pears, I thought Pears actually did all right. I don't want to slag him off, but he actually kept us in the game in that first half with some really good saves. And like you rightly said about positioning, his positioning was spot on. The mistake, I think it was Hyman got it into him, and I think there was a little bit of a jittery moment, but he ended up getting a smack across the face from Tronstad once again coming across and making that block. But generally, I thought Pears did okay. I don't think he could have done much with the goals. So Pears, is he still? You know, is he still under the microscope right now and we do need to get rid of him? Or if we don't get rid of him and he performs like this, you're okay?
I think we need a starting keeper. I don't think the crowd have enough confidence in him as well. And I know that you can't play football and make decisions about football clubs based on the crowd, but I think you probably need to do if it's a goalkeeper, because if the crowd are jittery, it's going to make the team jittery. And they are very jittery. Every time it goes back to Pears, all you can hear is, oh, God, get rid of it. And it's not because they're passing it around. They just don't have any confidence in him.
No, I completely agree. I had to ask the question because we need to give credit where credit's due. He's done okay so far with the ball at his feet. He doesn't look the level that we should be aiming at. But one player that does look the level that we're aiming at is the only new signing to start, and that was Gay. Once again, massive smile on his face and a lovely little hold up and through ball to Hedges for that goal. From your end of that, you know, from the for the first goal, talk about Gay's movement and through ball and then ultimately the finish.
I thought he was awesome, that first 30 minutes. He was almost unplayable. He was everything we wanted a big striker to be. He held the ball up. His touch was good. He was bullying the defenders, but then he's willing to run in behind. And the pass was a very intelligent pass. He waited, and he timed it very well, which allowed Hedges to then brilliant finish. I think one of the things when I've looked at it, I thought they dominated the game a bit initially. When I've watched bits of it back and I've looked at the stats and we had more possession, part of the problem was they'd figured us out tactically, so we couldn't use that switch ball. But then because we were so tired, then when they're doing that, you need to get the ball into a Gay. That was working fine for half an hour until he was exhausted. He was on his haunches after about half an hour. And Hedges and Rankin Costello both tired very quickly as well. So then we had no pace, no threat in behind. And I think that's where the pressure then came. If I'm being honest, I don't think it was anything else. I think if we'd have had more options on the bench to mix it up, we've got to get them up to speed as quick as possible. Hedges is such a big player for us as well. And
well, you know I've got a soft spot for Hedges, so you don't need to sell Hedges to me.
Yeah, it is so key. And I just hope we get the players in we need, because they've got the makings of a really good team.
Yeah, I mean, my concern right now is probably goalkeeper and I'm going to say the right wing, because I don't like JRC on that right wing. I think he got a lot of effort. I like his size for that position, but I just don't feel like that's his natural position. I like him at centre mid, and there's no real position for him there. And I like him covering the right back. I'm a fan of Callum Britton. I know he made that mistake, but generally I felt like that was uncharacteristic of him. Mm-hmm. Where are you happy with JRC on that right-hand wing? Because you've got Sigurdsson on the bench, and I'm now going to. I want you to talk about Sigurdsson as well. you know, you've got an Icelandic international. He comes on. He's got decent stats in regards to goals and assists. Why is JRC playing there? And why are we not trying to get Siggy on the pitch as well, and maybe Hedges on the right or Siggy on the right?
I would have liked to see them rotate a little bit more. So they do rotate into the 10 position and swap, but they don't swap wings necessarily. I'd have liked to have seen that because I've seen Rankin Costello there in his earlier days on that left-hand side. I think some of this is tactical and why the wingers are quite quiet, and some is a fitness level and some is just the position he's playing. So what he does really well, Rankin Costello, is he moves inside when Britain's going, and he also tracks back and knows when to cover. So him being there instead of Sigurdsson means that Britain can bomb forward, knowing full well that Rankin Costello, if he needs to drop in, he will drop in. If he needs to bring the defender inside to free the space up for Britain, he's doing that. So I think it's people are pointing to him and saying he's not doing a lot. He's doing a lot of the dirty work. He's bringing the fullback in, which is why Britain's getting so many assists. Similarly, that's what Hedges does so well. He's so good defensively and he's good tactically to know when to bring that fullback in. And that kind of goes under the radar. However, we are used to Rankin Costello grabbing the game by the scruff of the neck, and he didn't look anywhere near fit enough to be able to do that, or happy enough. I don't know which of the two. Sigurdsson has something, but I don't know if he can play one of those wide roles in a Eustace team. He almost needs to be the one where he cheats and you leave him up there. I'd like to see him tried in the 10 role. I'd like to see him tried in the 9 role, maybe. I thought maybe that Stockport game, I think we should try it against Blackpool because he's not going to play consistently for Eustace out wide.
Well, one thing I was thinking as this weekend when I was watching is Ohashi's obviously come on and done heroic things again. Is there a way that Dolan goes back out to the wing and Gay and Ohashi play together? Is that an option? Because, I mean, we're being linked to other players again, which we'll get to, but I'd love to see Gay and Ohashi play together somehow.
I think we've got to try it. I think they're both very clever in the movement. Gay's willing to drop in. Ohashi's willing to run in behind. I think it would work. We've seen it with Szmodics, haven't we, when it was Gallagher and Szmodics last year. And it's very similar, the front two now, that, you know, there's times where Szmodics is the furthest one forward. There's times where Gallagher was. I think they could do that. The only problem with that right now is when we turn to the bench, we've got Ohashi coming on, and you're not thinking, oh, God, but we've kind of, you know, we've played 60 minutes and now we're weakening the team. Actually, it gives the fans and probably the team that impetus to go, right, and now we've got a different option. We are lacking on the bench if you did that. But that's, you know, is that a reason not to start him? Probably not. I think I would be giving that a go against Oxford. At home, I'd be playing the two of them.
And especially if we sign the players we're being linked to, which we'll get to later. I came away from that Norwich game and I felt like Ohashi and Gay are both so important for this team already. It's 3 games in. We've got 2 signings that we hadn't heard of before. If someone says they've heard of Ohashi and Gay before this, they're lying. And it's like we've just got these 2 heroes. And I didn't expect that goal to come. You know, we didn't really seem to be. We had the ball. We had control of the ball, but it just wasn't in those key areas. And then it comes out to Britain, a lovely cross, absolutely golden cross. And like we said, this is what we wanted. And I'm going to bring him up again, but of Sam Gallagher. That was, I want this ball. This ball is mine. When that ball comes across, I'm going for it. And I don't care if I'm going to get kicked in the face, punched in the face by the goalkeeper. I am going for this ball. And that is the heart, that is the soul you want out of a striker. Ohashi did it once again. The amazing goal for us to get it. We stole a point off them, in my opinion. When you saw the game, did you feel like we was going to get that opportunity? And when that opportunity came, how to talk about the crowd?
I didn't think there was a goal coming. I think John Buckley's role in the game was important. My frustration was, it was obvious watching the game that they'd got a real grip of it and that we didn't have the legs to be able to turn that around in the 11 that were on the pitch at the time. So you're looking at it and thinking, how do we change this? And you're having that conversation with people around you. And I'm thinking, do we go 3 at the back? Because what was happening was the danger was coming out wide. So that would allow us to double up. Pickering could have some help. Britain could have some help. But then you've certainly nothing going forward. I would have brought the 2 changes that he made. I know he made 2 initially with Ohashi. But then the extra 2, when he brought Sigurdsson and Buckley on, I would have made them early. I think that they were quite big, important decisions. And when he brought John Buckley on, it just gave us that player that will play through the lines quickly. And that allowed us to then start to have a bit more of a threat again. But no, if I'm being honest, I thought once it had gone 2-1, it could go 3. It certainly wasn't going to go 2-2. And Britain, fantastic work down that right-hand side. And Ohashi to get in front of his man. It came from nowhere, didn't it? Edge of the box almost, a diving header, right in the corner. What an absolutely tremendous header and finish. And the away end, weren't expecting it. So when you get a goal and an equaliser, especially when Shane Duffy's just been celebrating right in front of you, giving it, big licks because he's gone 2-1 up. It was a very, very happy away end. I believe the term is limbs that was going on.
Well, what I've loved about Ohashi is all 3 of his goals have been instinct. The first one against Derby, that chip, to be able to have that instinct to be able just to dink it over the keeper when you're under that much pressure on your debut, you can tell he's got that instinct with his feet. And then the 2 headers, the one against Stockport, the glancing header, he knew exactly what he was doing in that because he could have made that a power header with how it was coming, but he knew it was a glance and just guide that into the far corner. And then this one, he knew if he just absolutely bombed it in front of the player and threw himself at it, he would get that ball. And that's the instinct that we're seeing that we haven't seen, like you say, since the Jordan Rhodes. The instinct to get that position and put his body on the line. He's not a young lad, I know, but we could get a few years out of him doing this. And we're only 3 games in, and we're talking about him being a cult hero already, along with Gay. I was to come away from a game where you felt like we wasn't really at our best, and that we looked like we was going to lose the game. To get a draw and have that kind of confidence, it just makes me feel like things are different this season compared to the end of last. And that's why I asked about the crowd. The games I went to last year, it was a toxic atmosphere. You could tell people were angry, they were upset. I'm not seeing that as much now. I mean, we'll get into the fan reaction in just a second. But in the crowd, did it feel when we went 2-1 down, it was toxic, or was it just a bit of a flat atmosphere?
Not toxic at all. That was my worry going into the season. I thought a couple of games in, if it's not going right, people are going to get very grumpy very quickly. But not at all. It did go a little bit flat. But that was all. It was both games. Now, I mean, I've Stockport one, obviously I went to, but I don't really count that. The Derby game, the first game of the season, was a big moment because the crowd could have gone either way, and they really backed the team. Very loud, very proud, and then at Norwich it was the same. So, dare I say it, I'm getting a little bit excited. That doesn't mean I think we're going to run away with the league. That doesn't mean I think we're going to go up. But there's something here that I didn't have any excitement coming this season, and I've got a bit now.
And it all came from these signings, didn't it? When we had a bit of a break, we was on holiday, and our phones were just going mad with these new signings. And to see these new signings coming through, for a start, you think, well, okay, we're getting some bodies through the door, and this is going to be good. And then when them signings kick off, because I mean, we haven't even spoken about Vyman and the positive effect he's had as well. You've already mentioned Danny Bath. It's these signings; they seem to be working. I mean, John Eustace, Rudy Gusted, we sang the praises of JDT and Broughton back in, at the start of last season. Now we're talking about JDT. We're talking about Eustace and Gusted. There's obviously something there which is working really well with these signings, and I hope that the players that we're being linked to can come through the door. They can add the depth because, like you said, we've got a crest of a wave here, and we do need to ride it. I'm looking at the fan reaction now, so we'll get into them. So the fan reaction, we post out on X after each game. We like to have a fan reaction from you for your instincts. You've had ours, normally quite drunken. And the first one we had from Luke Core was, Ohashi has scored in each of his last 6 competitive games for Rovers in Hiroshima. Say no more. Colin Wally says, defence and GK cost us as predicted. There's a little bit negative, that one, Colin. I don't think we necessarily did, because the one mistake that we did make, it didn't actually cost us a goal.
No.
From a goalkeeping point of view, defensively, yes, he did give the ball away, but it was a cracking finish from Sargent. Nordy Rover saying, I'm confident we'll be fine this season. New number 1, absolutely needed immediately. Pairs lucky not to throw away another point, and this happens multiple times a month. We won't be good enough to make up for all these howlers and stay up. Yuki, the Japanese destroyer. Chris Weir says, did enough to earn a point. Last season, we would have fell apart at 2-1, but we need to find a way of keeping a clean sheet. Ohashi and Gay give us so much up top that was missing last season. So one point he makes there that I really agree with is about the falling apart at 2-1. Now, last year, it seemed... It's weird. I'll tell you a little story that happened to me this weekend. So I now manage, actually, an under-10s team that's full of really talented players, and we play academy teams. Now, we played one this week, and they're very, very good. They've got loads of Blues and Villa academy players in, and we come to turn up. Now, we've lost one of our best players, and a lot of the lads are not used to losing from my team. We're playing this team full of academy players, big lads. I'm pretty sure they're all on human growth hormones, and they came from work the next day from that night. Now, we went 6-0 down really quick, and there was lots of tears and everything on the pitch, and everyone was really upset. And my job at half-time was basically just to say to them, look, you're still really good. And I was having to build them up. Now, we ended up getting a couple of goals, and we technically won the second half. That's what I was claiming. My point is we were so used to winning that when we lost, the determination just went, because they haven't been used to trying to fight back. When it came to Rovers last year, we never really fought back from a losing position. So it had that air of inevitability that whenever we're going to go a goal down, that's it. Game's gone. If we didn't, in fact, it was if we didn't score in the first 10 minutes, because we threw absolutely everything at them for 10 minutes at the start of games. And if it didn't happen, it wasn't going to happen. You might as well just put your mortgage on Rovers not getting the result. This season, you can tell, you had it in the derby. I mean, with 3 games in, we've already seen it in 2 games. Derby, they come back to 1-1. Normally that would mean that, I mean, Derby did actually carry on a little bit of pressure for a couple of minutes after that. But normally it means that we're just going to completely capitulate and go. Same with the game on Saturday. 2-1 down, normally turns to 3-1, game over, we all go home. Are you seeing the character that we've got where actually there's a determination there to show that the game's never lost? And if we have, where's that come from?
John Eustace. John Eustace has brought in, under JDT, there was loads of things I loved. But what there wasn't was a plan B. And it was that inevitability. And he just seemed to do nothing about it, didn't he? That was always the criticism. Under Eustace, if we go to Leeds, I could see a way that we'll win. If we're playing at home to Oxford, I can see a way that we'll win. They'll be very, very different. And it doesn't mean I'm expecting us to win those games. But we've got different ways of playing and different styles of play, even within a game, without changing the personnel. And that's come from one man. And fair play to him, because he's implemented that quickly to some extent last year, but he's implemented a bit of a hybrid now and a way that we can change the way we're playing while still keeping an identity. And I wasn't expecting that from John Eustace, if I'm being honest.
No, he's proved us wrong. I mean, I have Blues fans saying to me, "I'll enjoy Eustace ball. It's going to be boring." But actually, he just seems like he's a really intelligent manager. He plays with what he's got. It's horses for courses. He knows exactly how to play certain teams. But there's no pleasing fans because there's other people here. Phil Davis said, great to see us come from behind. Sorry, this is a positive one, sorry. Phil Davis says, great to see us come from behind, which didn't happen to JDT. New players have already made an impact. Again, unlike last season, but a new keeper is a must. Leston Page, do you guys think we need Ohashi and Gay playing together? We've already mentioned that. But there was the last comment is CVBRC, individuals let us down. Did you feel let down at any point? I know I didn't.
No. Normally I can try and give away. I can see that. I think I completely disagree. I don't think we've been let down by any player at any point. Yeah, Pear's made an error. Yeah, Britain made an error, but I don't feel let down by them. I don't feel that anybody's giving less than their all at any point. I actually, that's one of the things I love about our team right now is that I feel they represent us as supporters and that they're, I never feel they're not even trying from anybody at all.
No, I feel like there was always a determination last year without the product, and now we're getting the determination with the product. So I think a lot of it's coming down from these new signings with the Danny Bass, McFadden being back in the building as well, and then you've got these new infectious characters with Gahey and Ohashi. Now you put out a tweet to do with the 3-word review. Have you got any favourites you want to shout out?
Do you know what? The feedback to this has been really good. Talk Rovers, I love Yuki. That's a very common theme. We have got one from Louis Grant saying additional keeper required. So we have still got them. Some people we've got Aaron saying take a point. We had 3 good signings. Ohashi's a future legend. Yuki's on fire. One said bring on Burnley. I'm presuming he put that before they played. When over on X, we had one from Reese that I'm not going to read out, but I agree with wholeheartedly. Aaron's Mr. Boyce said laughing at Duffy. And this one is the one that I think is actually, well, there's 2. Blunders, brilliance and bounce back ability. Fair play. The Fresh Prince of Moyclair. But the one that I really like is Art et Labore. And that is exactly what I think John Eustace encompasses. Skill and hard work. It's not just one, it's both. And I like that.
Brilliant. Well, before we get into next weekend, did you see Kaminski for Luton? He's sending off.
So I pulled up near the ground and my nephew was in the back and he went, wait till you see this. So he showed me the clip and I turned away after the first one. He went, he's got sent off. And he showed me the clip and I was like, well, that was daft, wasn't it? And he went, oh, there's more. I was like, what? There's 2 sendings off. It was like he sort of went, oh, I'm going to go off here. I'll text someone with me. So
my 3-word review of that one would be rush of blood because he absolutely clattered 2 players. He was definitely right. I've got you. Where's the next one? And then obviously another ex-player, Brereton Diaz, your best buddy, your mate. Quick review on what happened with him. Did you see that against Newcastle? I assume you did.
Yeah, my brother lives up there as well. They're not very fond of him right now. Strange one, wasn't it? He went and shoved. For those who haven't seen it, the referee blows the whistle and the ball's kind of played forward and Cher's running towards the ball, just trotting to pick the ball up so they can take a free kick. And Brereton Diaz barges him in the back, which gets a reaction from Cher, who then places his head very gently on Brereton Diaz's, and Brereton Diaz goes down like, I would say it's part of the game if it's your team. Alex Ferguson will probably say he could have killed him. These things, they've got to stamp them out. Violent conduct, you have to stamp it out. I'm going to stick up for him.
So it's part of the game I hate. I hate this kind of thing.
It's part of the game.
Yeah, you've got. It's part of the modern game. You've got to do it for your team. We've had Savage do it for us. I absolutely hate it. But when I saw it, I was creasing because he's grown his hair and you just see this long mane just go flying like he's been shot. And he goes down and then obviously he's thinking, right, I've got him sent off, but now I've got a hell of a lot of fans that want my blood. And you could just see, like, when he was going off at half time, like he's finding like a few players that could go and shuffle in between before he goes down the tunnel. And then I think it all kicked off in the tunnel, didn't it?
There was a little bit of footage from it, wasn't it? Yeah, and he was hiding behind a couple of others. I don't blame him, to be fair. Dan Burn's a big fella, and but yeah, if he's planned to do that, fair play in some respects.
Yeah, fair play.
But if it happens against us, I'd be absolutely fuming, and I'd want to go and do a Thomas Kaminski on whoever did it. So.
See, that's the thing. I'm more of a Thomas Kaminski kind of player where I'd just come and absolutely take out a couple and get sent off rather than be the one to get someone else sent off. But that's just me and my anger issues. So moving on to next week, we've got Oxford United at home on Saturday. Now, the new boys have actually had a pretty solid start with a 2-0 win against Norwich in the league, which I think a lot of people were shocked about. And then they go to when Peterborough come to their place and they also win 2-0. And they took Coventry, a very good Coventry side. They lost 3-2. It was a bit of a mistake for that third goal. It's a game where I'd like to see us have a little bit of rotation. It's that right wing I am concerned about going forward. Does Ohashi get a start? Pears is going to be still in goal because no matter if we sign a keeper or not, Pears will be the goalkeeper. So before people put in the comments saying I'd have a different goalkeeper in, chances are we're not going to have one. Now, we're being linked to a few players. Let's assume there's no one in. What kind of rotation are you looking at, if any? Me, I'd be taking JRC off and maybe trying to shoehorn Siggy or potentially getting Ohashi in with Gay and moving Dolan out to a wing with Hedges. Where are you sitting?
I would 100% start Ohashi with Gay. And I think I'd probably give JRC another go. That would be my only change.
Well, I'm not one to do predictions. We did it last year, and I absolutely was A, terrible, or B, jinxed us. So we're not going to do predictions. But if you've got any and you want to put them in the comments, put them down below. Yep. What would you like to see happen? Would you like to see a bit of rotation? What would your starting 11 be? And we can we'll make sure we read them and we'll comment. But we have a quiz the fans, Mark. So you've got one for us. Last week was quite popular. Which one? What's the quiz question this week?
So a little bit of a. I tell you what, it's using a lot of my brain power. This I don't know. I'll go back on when I'm off. I'm off work at the moment on holiday. I don't know. I'll cope when I'm back. Okay, so a little bit of a riddle for you, and then we will reveal the answer at the end. But you might buy me to say sorry, as I am not always a saint. I can be a bit foxy, but I'll always save the day. So you might buy me to say sorry, as I am not always a saint. I can be a bit foxy, but I'll always save the day.
I think I have it. Should this be one I get? I don't know. Don't give any clues. I'll have a go at that one later. So let's get into the topics. It's an obvious one to start with. We've talked about them a lot. Ohashi and Gay. Why do we love them?
I think we love them because we've been crying out for this type of, certainly Gay, that type of player for a while, and we've been frustrated. We've been frustrated as fans with Brereton Diaz at times. We've been frustrated with Gallagher for 5 years. We have been frustrated with Ennis, Telalovic. There's a string of strikers that have just not been good enough. So I think what we've seen so far is exactly what we've wanted. And then the fact that Ohashi's come in and dovetails with some excellent attributes, but that are very different to Gay's, it's exciting because we've got players that are attacking the ball. We've got players that can hold the ball up. All these things should be pretty bog standard for an EFL player. But then they scored. And that's a big thing. I think Gay needs a goal in the EFL quite quick. But I saw why they played him against Stockport, because he got that goal and he needs that. Probably do the same at Blackpool, but he needs a goal quite quickly, because that otherwise can be, he's never scored in the league. It can quickly become 5-6 games, can't it? But in terms of their contribution, I think it was very exciting because we've seen a glimpse, and they've not had that much football yet. In terms of they played, 2 games, but they've also only played 60 minutes for Gay, probably the same for Ohashi. So, yeah.
No, exactly. I think for me, it's the fact that Gay's actually had some goal involvements as well as Ohashi.
Yep.
It's that positive movement, which I didn't really see from previous strikers. I'm not going to keep slagging off the same player. In fact, I will, Sam Gallagher. So it's when we've got someone that's bombing forward, that has that effort, and it actually looks like he's making positive movement and positive plays with the ball, you know what he's trying to do is score goals, whether it's him or someone else. Gallagher, he seemed very soft. He wasn't doing. He was putting in the work rate. He was doing well defensively. But Gay's taking that off him straight away. Attacking set pieces, we are looking better, except for that debacle at half time and at Norwich. But generally, attacking plays, we look a bit better. And you can tell that's because we do have the likes of Ohashi that's willing to put his head in the ball. We have got the size of Gay. Defensively, like I said, Gay is doing quite well. I think you said after the Norwich game, you could tell when he went off, we started to struggle even more with clearing the ball. So the reason I love Gay, really positive movement, really positive with the ball. But not only that, you can just tell he's that infectious character, massive smile, looks like he just loves being a professional footballer. And that's what you want. You know, we all had dreams of being professional footballers when we were boys. And he just looks like he's like, I'm here and I'm enjoying it and I'm going to give everything. And then you look at Ohashi, it's similar. You can tell he's got that, I love being here. I'm really happy about being a professional footballer, but he's got that technical ability as well. Like we said, you're comparing him to the club legends like Jordan Rhodes already. His movement, his instincts and everything, the willingness to get into positions that other strikers don't. That's why we're falling in love with them. I'm looking at Twitter and everyone's going on about Ohashi and Gay. Like, I'm Gay for Ohashi and all of this. And I love it. I think it's brilliant that we have these players now that, because we'd got stagnant. The team had got stagnant. We was playing the same players that weren't working week in, week out, and just crossing fingers and hoping that it would eventually click. Now, it eventually clicked with Szmodics. It eventually clicked with Brereton. But that's pulling the rabbit out of the hat. These two, they've come in and they've just had that energy. And like we said earlier, we're not even talking about the Vymans and the Danny Bass, and they've come in and done a job. And now we're being linked to other players that are just as exciting with the Dembeles, the Rio Germains. It feels like we've got that identity again, and we've actually got players that believe in it. And Ohashi and Gay are personifying what we want as players. That's just from me. But going on to the next, talking about transfers, Rio Germain, Dembele, there's talk of Stansfield and other goalkeepers. If we did go for this Rio Germain, it looks like it's a done deal. Knowing our luck, it's going to happen between the end of this podcast and it being released tomorrow. Where would you think he's fitting in? Because you've already discussed the fact, which was a great point to make, where when you've got Gay up top until 60 minutes, then you bring in Ohashi on, it lifts everyone up. He's got that technical ability to come on and actually make a difference. Do you think it's going to be that we rotate in and Rio Germain could be someone that either starts and Gay drops to the bench and we rotate the three? Where can you see him fitting in?
Potentially on that right-hand side, or is it going to be that Ohashi and Gay start and he's then gives us that option off the bench, because we just don't have that if those two start? I have spoken to a Japanese journalist and I'm hoping to get him on the pod, and the one thing he just said very briefly was Ohashi had really grown over the last year, and he's not surprised with Ohashi physically and in terms of his confidence and his ability. Rio Germain's almost a year earlier than that, he'd said, and he said, I wouldn't place the same expectations on, he's not going to necessarily come and do what Ohashi has done yet. He said he could well. Ohashi turned into a beast, was the way he described it in the J League. He said Rio Germain's not there, and he's playing in a very poor team, whereas Ohashi was one of the standout performers for a very good team. So, and we just need to temper that a little bit, because naturally what we're all doing is going, well, Ohashi's been amazing. Now we're getting another. Brilliant. In terms of the other links, I think Dembele, you probably have heard much more about him. I think he always looks fantastic in clips. He always looks dangerous against you, but then seems to go to teams and then not play or disappear quite quickly. And my concern is he a little bit similar to Dolan in that respect? Is he not quite consistent enough? But the fact that John Eustace has had him previously, and if he does want to sign him again, alleviates all of that for me, because Eustace wouldn't sign him if he didn't think he could rely on him, if he didn't think he could add to the team, and if he wasn't defensively minded at the same time and not going to shirk those responsibilities. And the Stansfield one, I've seen people poo-pooing it. I've seen the Fulham fans saying that they want him around the team, that they want more money. The one thing I would say, because I've seen people saying, well, Venky's never spent that money. Venky's do spend. They have a history of spending quite big on strikers, particularly young ones, because they are minded that they will then potentially make a big profit on those players. So actually, if there was ever going to be a position and a type of player that they would spend 6-7 million on, it would be a 21-year-old English striker. I'm not saying they will do, but that is the circumstance I could see it happening. Very similar to Diaz.
Yeah, well, that's exactly the point that we spoke about, wasn't it, about Diaz? You know, that we spent similar kind of money on him, and it ended up coming good. But we didn't get that resale on him, obviously. But the resale could have been there. We just didn't do it. So going back to the Dembele one, from what I've spoken about with all the Blues fans in my family and who I know, it seems like he's a bit of a YouTube footballer. He looks great in clips and, you know, like you say, going forward, looks quite sexy. But when you watch him, he doesn't defend much. But I'm okay with that. You know, we've got players to defend. We've actually got a relatively defensive centre mid as well now. So if you've got your front three just being left to go and make something happen up top, especially when you've got players like Gay and Ohashi in the middle, he can actually unlock something. Now, does that mean that Dolan's going to be on his way out? I'm not too sure about the contract status with him. I don't know. But it's someone I've been told I should be excited about, but we'll wait and see on that one. Now, going to the Stansfield one. So the Stansfield one, for me, I can't see it happening. And the reason being, Rio Jermaine looks like it's a done deal, which means you've then got three strikers. So you've got your three strikers. You've also got Harry Leonard that is being very highly rated by the club. And he probably won't go out on loan because of his injuries, I'm guessing, because I just don't think you normally, loan out an injured player. So you'd be spending a lot of money on a player, and I'm not sure where he would then sit. Because if you play in Stansfield, you're going to play in that number 9 role right at the top of the tree. So that means Jermaine, Gay and Ohashi are not probably going to be getting as much game time. And when you've got two players there that have started as well as they have, and this Jermaine that we rate quite highly, I just can't see us spending that money in that position at this time. Now, if we rate him extremely highly, we have the money there, we're willing to spend the money, then sometimes you just got to say, look, he's available, we can get him for way less than what we think he's worth. Then, yes, you may think, do you know what, let's just do it, and we might, annoy one of our other new signings. I just can't see it. All the Fulham fans bit on that post that we put out, and I'd put one out as well, saying, well, Marco Silva says he's not going anywhere. He's worth 15, 20 million. He's worth this, that, and the other. If he does go, it's going to be on loan. But, okay, maybe. I mean, we haven't made the links. We're not making this up. There's other people making the links. We're just making a comment on it. Now, I can't see this one being a realistic one. I don't think he's going to be going anywhere permanently anyway, because I have heard that he's quite highly rated at Fulham, and I don't think anyone was going to spend the kind of money that they would want for him. I don't think he's done enough to prove that he's in double figure millions. But then again, what had Wharton necessarily done to be worth what he'd done? It was a small sample size for Wharton. Yes, we knew that he had potential, but was he, had he done enough for a lot of clubs to look at and say he's definitely worth this? I don't know if anyone's seen the interview with Steve Parish saying about why did no one go in for Wharton, and he was shocked that no one did. But hey ho, going back to Stansfield, I don't think he's worth it. But we'll wait and see on that one. But goalkeepers, Mark, I'm not hearing much about us getting a new goalkeeper. But all these comments we're seeing from fans, the mailbag, all the comments, we need a new goalkeeper, we need a new goalkeeper. Surely we didn't have all our eggs in the basket of that one keeper that decided to pick the rainy Marseille over sunny Blackburn.
Well, there's a couple being talked about, aren't they? But only loosely. I do think the links to John Ruddy probably have some merit, because it would appear Burnley have signed 2 keepers, and it would appear that James Trafford is wanted up there. So that would then make sense that Ruddy would then be available, because they brought him in to cover if Pope wasn't fit enough early on, and they've still not brought Trafford in. So the fact he could be available on loan towards the end of the window, fair enough. But I'd like to see us go and get somebody that we can hang our hat on and say that is the man for the next 4 years. And I'm not seeing that right now. But if that man's not out there, you don't want us to go and waste the money either. So with Pears and with maybe Ruddy coming in, and it tied us over until we can find the right person. I think you'd be better doing that than wasting money.
Well, what's crazy is the signings that we've made. It wasn't like we, as fans, knew the club was courting them for a long period of time. It was like you hear a couple of noises a couple of days before, and then bang, they're there pictured with a shirt, and you know, a couple of days after that, they're playing the game. So things can change very quick. I can't see any names being linked that I think are realistic. There's talks of Iverson, which I've been told he isn't very good with his feet, and he has a big wage attached to him. So I can't see players like that. But who knows? But one thing we are certain, and this is the hot topic of the week, Sam Szmodics. He was brilliant for us last year. Before that, arguably, was just a rotation player, maybe a decent first teamer. But generally, last year, he earned himself the right to go and play in the Premier League. Discuss with me the fee that we got. So it's going to be around the 10 million mark with a lot of add-ons. Are you happy with that?
They're saying they're very realistic add-ons, aren't they? So they're saying that they are, if they stay up, and if they don't stay up, that there's a bounce back sort of one. They're saying that they're quite realistic in terms of international appearances, in terms of goals. I think the fact there wasn't more interest causes you an issue. My fear with Szmodics was that he might... I don't think he would get 30 goals again. I thought he might get 15, 20. So my fear was if they didn't come early on in the season, are you heading into January? And actually he's 29 and a half by then. He's then worth 4 million. And actually this is our one chance to sell. But for me, it all hinges on what that does for us. If that money brings us 4 or 5 players that make us better as a team, then I'm okay with it. And if it doesn't, then it's pointless, isn't it? You know, if you're selling him, I get we probably had to, because he'd become very unhappy, wouldn't he, if we didn't? But you've got to take the opportunity of selling the players like Wharton, like Szmodics. When you get their max value that you put whatever on them, you've got to take that opportunity, but you've then got to reinvest it. Otherwise, it's a wasted opportunity.
Well, you've actually done a bit of a perfect segue there into the mailbag. So we're going to mix a couple of topics here with the mailbag and with the hot topic. So Cumbria77 has asked, would you rather we go for a big signing like the 6 million being touted for Stansfield, or get 3 2 million players into strength and key areas? So you've effectively answered for me, but £2 million players for us is still really expensive signings, and to get 3 of them, I think would be fantastic. So, what are you've already answered me. You said you don't want to go and do the £6 million signing and spend all of that money in one go that we've got for Szmodics. Plus, obviously, we have money with Raya and Wharton potentially coming in as well, as other little bits here or there. So, let's assume we got 8 million for Szmodics. Are you spending 2 million on 4 players? Are you spreading it around? And if so, where are you using it?
I think it has to be a spread around because I think we are light on a goalkeeper that could start. I think we're light on midfield, maybe cover, but could well be needed. So, these two players do not come cheap. I think we can get away with a cover for a fullback stroke centre-half, a bit like a Crescenti type loan deal. You could potentially get away with a loan from the Premier League, but it's wasted money. I mean, there was somebody the other day that had gone, and they said that there was about a 3 million loan fee.
It's a joke nowadays, mate.
That's I don't want us to do that at all. Under no circumstances.
I'm happy to do that if we're really pressing at the top of the league, and that's the difference between us getting automatic promotion and playoffs. And we're not going to be like that. So you're just wasting money on renting a player that's never going to join you to finish 2 spots above where we were going to finish, and it's not going to put you into that playoff spot. They need to be special players. And I don't think there's anyone available nowadays because all the trouble is that anyone that's super special, like your Harvey Elliott's and stuff, they tend to be playing Premier League and League Cup for their parent clubs anyway.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think the time that I would have considered doing it was that 2 summers ago when JDT had got us so close to the playoffs, even get my words out, and I could see the difference maker being bought then. On loan or whatever. I understood that one, but not where we are right now. I want to see us build. I want to see that money reinvested. I want to see us with a first choice goalkeeper, midfield, somebody that you go, do you know what? Actually, if Travis isn't doing it or Tronstad's not doing it or there's an injury, I'm really happy he's come in and potentially keeps his place. And I think we need somebody out wide still. I think we're 5 players short, if I'm being honest. I think we need cover at the full-back, stroke centre-half, a midfielder, a keeper, out wide, and probably a 10-9. We're missing one of them.
Well, we're already seeing this season that subs are making a big difference. I mean, I think Rich Sharp put a stat out saying that we've already scored more from subs this season than we have done all of last season. All the last 3 seasons as individual seasons. So it just goes to show if you're spending that money and you're getting that depth, it makes a huge difference. You've got 7 subs there. That's 7 different tactical decisions a manager can make during a game. And if you get the right players on that bench, they can come off the bench and actually affect the game, be it from a defensive point of view, a creative, or a finishing point of view. If it's not working with Gay, you can have a couple of options. You can say, do you know what? They've changed their defence, and I know that he can't handle pace, so I'm going to bring on a pacey player. If you have that kind of variety on the bench, spending that money, the world's your oyster. Now, finishing off the Szmodics conversation before we carry on with the mailbag, and I want to discuss the fee. So I'm seeing a lot of people saying, "Oh, we should have got 20 million, 30-goal striker, this, that, and the other." For me, I'm a realistic fan. We need to realise his career has not been fantastic before last season. If you take before last season, you may have even said that the money we spent for him was not worth it, which was around the 2.5 million, I believe. Is that right? That 2.5 million?
I think it might have been latter ends of 1, but yeah. Anyway.
Okay, so what? It was less than $1 million.
No, I think he was sort of like 1.75, 1.8.
Oh, okay, sorry. So for us, a lot of money. I would have argued with you at the start of last season, before the season happened, that I wasn't happy that I was signing for us that was relatively expensive in our current predicament that wasn't doing it. Now, we've done it across last season, but that is a very small sample size on a very long career. Well, sorry, not a very long career, but a long career considering. I'm quite happy that we've got effectively, probably when all said and done, 10, 12 million for him, for a player that has come in, he saved us. You don't know if he was going to build on it. You don't know if there's going to be injuries. Yes, he started this season with a couple of, with 3 goals, I think. It was 3 goals. But I need to be realistic. I need to look at this and go, he's not young. He's, like you say, he's 29. He's not shown it at the top level. He has only just got into the Ireland team, and I don't believe he's played fantastic for Ireland. You could tell me I'm wrong there, but he's not shown enough for me to be worth that 20 million. So for, yes, 30 goals, it's a hell of a lot. I get that. But there was no consistency there over his career where people were going to come and spend that money. Now, we got pelters in our video that we did saying, no, he's not the Szmodics slander, I think they called it, saying he doesn't, we said he doesn't do enough, he doesn't do this, he doesn't do that, and that we're wrong. We could be. But for me, I just think that we got a decent amount for him. Yes, he hadn't put in a transfer request, but if we'd kept saying no, that's probably coming, and you don't want an unhappy player, so you may as well let him go. So let's say the fee was around 10, 12 when all said and done. Are you happy with that?
Yeah, I think that's a realistic fee. I think what we've got to look at, but again, only if it is reinvested. That's the, I know people say, well, it won't be, but it has to be to some level, because I almost put the Szmodics one into the same bracket as signing somebody on loan, because his value would have dropped dramatically. It'd be like buying a brand new car and then driving out of the showroom, wouldn't it? His value would not have held this time next year because he'd be nearly 30. So we're not in a position where, if again, go back 2 years under JDT, those 30 goals might have been the difference between playoffs and not. I think we'll be okay from relegation perspective. So therefore, we are floating around mid-table. So are his goals going to make that big a difference? I really don't think they will tip us into the playoffs. I really don't. So therefore, get that money in and make yourself a better team, make your foundations better to start building like we talked about. But that is the key. They have to do that.
Yeah, and moving on through the mailbag, there was a couple of people saying about, the concern of depth and stuff. You can't be adding quality depth without selling some players. Wharton went, he was always going to go. We've got that Raya money in, now we've got the Szmodics money. Now it comes down to whether the Venkis are going to back us and actually spend the money that the club has made. We're not unrealistic. We know that some of this money is going to go into the running of the club. That's just business, especially in the AFL. I do hope, and I'm completely with what you said, that we do get some of these positions. And looking at the mailbag, people are saying the new keeper is the biggest need. The defence is costing us. Are we concerned as well? We've mentioned a lot of this in the pod, and I think it is just depth. But the last question we're going to ask is from Norwich Rover. Would you rather eat one meal for the rest of your life or never be able to have the same meal twice ever again? Not going to lie, this one kept me up at night, because that is a tough question. That is a tough question. I'm not sure I could eat the same thing every single day. But if you get that really nice meal and you can never have it again.
Yeah.
Where are you landing, Mark?
It came down. I mean, my problem with this is I'm presuming we have to eat this. If you're having 3 meals a day, you're eating this 3 times a day. However, the way I settled this, Mike, was if somebody said to me, you can never eat a curry ever again, I've had it. It's game over. And I could probably eat a curry. If I didn't eat breakfast, I could have one for dinner and one for tea pretty much every day. And I'm going to slightly cheat a little bit and say I'm using curry, so therefore I can have different curries. So
I get what you're saying.
Yeah.
I get what you're saying. So I always said if I could only have one country of origin, menu for the rest of my life, it would probably be Chinese. I could have Chinese morning, noon, and night. But when it comes to singular meals, I think I'd have to never eat the same meal twice. But then I'm going to get to some real dodgy stuff at some point.
Yeah. You could, yeah.
Nordy, you've stumped us. You've stumped us. I mean, people put in their comments what they think, and if you was a single meal, what meal would it be? I think if mine was a single meal, it's got to be something chicken based. I can't give up my chicken.
I can tell you can't give your chicken up. You're absolutely looking massive right now, Mike. You are looking
hitting the gym. So yeah, if you know, you've got to take the eyes away from the bald head and get onto the arms. Do you know what I mean?
Those fins look dangerous.
Okay, so we're on to Retro Rovers. So thank you everyone that put stuff to the mailbag. But we're on to Retro Rovers. Mark, over to you.
So, Retro Rover. So, the little riddle was, you might buy me to say sorry, as I'm not always a saint. I can be a bit foxy, but I'll always save the day. Mike, who do you think it is?
I think it's my buddy Tim Flowers.
Of course it's Tim Flowers. So, you might buy me to say sorry, Flowers. I'm not always a saint. He left Southampton. I can be a bit foxy. He went to Leicester, but I'll always save the day because he's a very, very good goalkeeper. Talk to me, Tim Flowers. What's your memories? And obviously, tell everybody how he's now your best friend.
Oh, wow. So I'll be honest. At the time, I thought he was a great goalkeeper, but I felt like he wasn't the level that we wanted. But I just expected my goalkeepers to be up here. And at the time, as you can tell by my head, one of my favourite goalkeepers was Fabian Barthez. And I was just desperate to go and get really exciting goalkeepers. But looking back, unreal goalkeeper. Unlucky that he was playing around the David Seaman era because he didn't really get his England opportunities. So effectively, he became a Rovers legend. Obviously, he then left and we replaced him with John Phelan. But I just thought he was really solid. He seemed like a really nice guy, great character. And he's now coaching some of our local teams. I think he's at Redditch United now, I believe, from Bromsgrove. I did try to get on his coaching staff, and I did have an opportunity, but I had to say no because I thought they train twice a week basically, and I went on a Thursday because I coach on the pitch next to where they coach, and I just went up to their goalkeeping coach saying, "Do you need any help?" And he was like, "Oh yeah, brilliant. Can you do a Tuesday?" And I said, "No, I can't. I'm sorry," because I coach another for another company. And they said, "It's okay. You can come down on a Saturday and help warm the goalkeepers up and be part of our staff there." But then it would have mean I'm not watching any Rovers. So, I had to say. And then he got sacked, basically, and went to Redditch United. So, but yeah, from what I heard, genuine guy, absolutely fantastic coach. All the players that I speak to that have been coached by him all say just what he brings up, they just can't understand how he's seen it, but it's absolutely spot on. But as a goalkeeper, really solid, and just unlucky not to get more England caps, really.
Absolutely. And I think if we hadn't have had Brad Friedel, he would have been the best goalkeeper I've seen in a Rovers shirt. I think we've been absolutely spoilt with the keepers that we've had in terms of particularly Flowers and Friedel. I remember Bobby Mims. I loved Bobby Mims. I was what was I when Bobby Mims was there? 6, 7. Loved him. He'd come out, we'd all shout, Bobby. Loved it. And then we bought, it's the days where we kind of got, well, we want an upgrade on this position. Who's the best we can get? Well, we can't get David Seaman. We can't get Peter Schmeichel. We'll buy Tim Flowers. In he came, and you sort of immediately saw, that's why we bought him. And I will never, ever, ever forget that Newcastle game at home. Obviously, the interview where he talked about Bottle about 400 times. But the saves he made that day, he was so good. Even the things that you look back, and he used to put lines, didn't he, in the centre of his pitch for his markings for himself. And that cost him when Stan Collymore bobbled one over his head. But I just thought he was such a reliable, dependable goalkeeper. It was such a shame how it ended, really, because Rovers had really struggled towards the 98, 99 season. Obviously, we ended up getting relegated. And I think he was struggling with injuries, wasn't he? I think it's his hips, if I'm not mistaken, that were really struggling. And you could see it really impacting his performances. Remember there being a set piece at home to Chelsea that Zola, of all people, had about 20 yards out. And he just chipped it over the wall. And Flowers just couldn't get anywhere near it. And it wasn't even right in the corner. And I remember thinking, this is really sad. because he was unbelievable as a goalkeeper for us, and he just couldn't get to the level that he did. He went on to carry on playing for Leicester, for Stockport, for Coventry, for Man City. He didn't actually play for City in the end, but he went on loan. But yeah, just a top ball. And every time I've met him, I've been to some of the anniversary dinners. I'm sure there'll be more coming up this year. Seems like a top bloke. But yeah, Tim Flowers, what an absolute Rovers legend.
Yeah, Grace, it's nice to reminisce about these players, and people watching, please put on the comments below your thoughts on these players that we talk about, because some people that listen, they're a lot younger and they probably haven't seen these players, and some they might be a bit older and they think that Tim Flowers, they might remember the Terry Genos and people like that and say that they were better. So put the comments down below. But Mark, it's always a pleasure.
Absolutely, buddy. Absolutely. I mean, another bumper pod there. But yes, I'm looking forward to the pod next week. I think we should have a positive result against Oxford. But what I would say to people is, just because they've come up from League One, please don't think that, we're going to have to, we'll win this. It's going to be a bit of an easy game. Oxford United, I would put them, I'm not saying they're going to go up, but I put them more akin to an Ipswich than a Rotherham coming up from that league. They are really riding the crest of a wave. So if we win, I don't think it will be an easy game at all.
Well, one of my mentors that I coach in his company, he's actually one of the youth development. I think he's could potentially be head of youth development at Oxford, and he said they're very excited about what they've got there. I might see if he can give us a quote actually for some content. But yeah, so there we go. Like Mark said, a bumper pod. Please like and subscribe and share. We're seeing all the views. The views are not actually that far away from when we was at Rovers Chapel. It just shows that there's some people that were listening that don't necessarily know that we have moved. So please share, please like, subscribe, all the good stuff. You've got all the socials at the bottom here. And email us at theblackburnend@gmail.com. Any questions, anything you want to know. And we'll see you next week.